Joyous Rising family, grand rising, a great rising, happy rising. Welcome, family. It's so good to see everybody here. Happy Moon Day or Monday. Today is Monday. It is March the 24th, 2025, and the time is 2:12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I see we don't have a lot of people on today, but I still wanted to come on and come live and let you all know that JFK Jr., John Fitzgerald Kennedy Jr., is truly alive, and I've had him on my show many times. He just wrote a second book, so I want to review his book and let you all know what he's up to, as far as I can tell. So keep checking in, family. I'm so glad to see everybody. Happy spring, happy new year. Welcome. Um, Let's see, today is again a moon day, a high manifestation day. And please, before we go into the show, let us know where you're hailing from and how you're doing. I see many of you checking in now. I want to acknowledge you all and thank you all for being here for me and supporting the Dr. Pruitt show. And I also want to acknowledge those of you who have blessed me with the Cash App blessing over the weekend. So welcome, Horatio and God's Girl. Welcome, Sham Bam. Welcome, Jasmine L. It's good to see you. Truth is in the house. Brandon Rogers is here. Chloe Harris is here, and the rest of you are still checking in. Madge Berger is here from Madge. Are you from South Africa? It's good to see you. Kim is here as well. So keep checking in, family. I know this is Monday, and most people didn't know I was coming on live, so I apologize for um, the short notice that I'm coming live. Hi, hello, Crystal. It's good to see you all. Hello, Kim. Greetings to you, Brother James, King James. It's always good to see you. So, family, John Fitzgerald Kennedy Jr. is the son of John Fitzgerald Kennedy Sr. He has come out in the recent years talking about his life and how he was hidden away in protective custody from the limelight. Now, many of you probably don't know his story because we were told that the John F. Kennedy Jr. that we know about died in a plane crash. That gentleman's name was actually George, and that's why he has to produce the George magazine. He is the son of Aristotle Onassis, who Jackie Kennedy had married, her second marriage, and she married him to protect her. He was a shipping magnate and an oil billionaire. George actually, again, was the son of Aristotle Onassis, and his mistress Marie Callis was her name. So she had a son by the name of George, and he was the replacement for John Fitzgerald Kennedy Jr., the real one. John Fitzgerald Kennedy Jr. was sold off to a family called the Quigley families. The Quigley family was a part of the deep state, the cabal, the Illuminati, and a controlled faction of high-profile people which control the government, the CIA, the FBI, all of them. This is why Donald Trump, or the person playing the character of Donald Trump, is dismantling the deep state, because not only are they a so-called fake government, but they are the cabal. They are billionaires that control the world. They are a mafia. And I think it's interesting that President Trump just released the Kennedy files recently, like a few days ago, right on the precipice of John Fitzgerald Kennedy Jr.'s second book called The Historian's Tale. It's called The Historian's Tale: The Amazing Return of President Kennedy's Son. I reviewed his first book called Stolen Identity maybe a year and a half ago, and I will put that book review up after I do this review, because I done it on my other channels and my channels got taken down. I had to actually find that first book review, but I'm going to review this one right now, and then I'll re-upload that first book review. So this is what John Fitzgerald Kennedy Jr. really looks like. I've interviewed him many times on the show. I'll bring him back on if he's open to it, because it's so important to tell his story. Many of you know that his father actually said that there was a criminal cabal, his father said there are a group of people that controlled the world, and a group of people that were trying to eliminate all of us off the planet. And he said, before I leave this high noble office, I will disclose who those people are. And then they got rid of John Fitzgerald Kennedy Sr. So I'll try not to make this long. You can't hear? The sound is gone. What? Can you all hear me? You can hear? Somebody said I should have just got John on. I will get John on with me. But I always do a book review before I do the interview, okay? So this is called, again, The Historian's Tale, The Amazing Return of President Kennedy's Son. And again, I wanted to actually read the book a couple times. He sent me this book. He mentions me in the book 3 times, and I am very, very honored because he didn't have to do that. In fact, he says his first big break came from the Dr. Pruitt show. So I want to honor you all and thank you all for watching the shows where I reviewed his first book and I interviewed him. It's a great honor to meet and know John Fitzgerald Kennedy Jr. It's a great honor for me that you all took the time to listen to the story as I told it on my show. I took some flack for it because people told me I was very gullible, but I'm just the type of person that I desire to hear people's stories. I always knew I was going to be a reporter because I love listening to people's life and I love hearing their stories from their perspective. So I was very, very honored when John Fitzgerald Kennedy Jr. allowed me to interview him and allowed me to review his books. I'm very honored that he mentioned me in the second book. I'm very honored that he sends me blessings. He sends me gifts. He has sent me a beautiful necklace. He has sent me monetary blessings, and he doesn't have to do that. So let's get into the book, family, as you all keep checking in. You can hear me loudly and clearly. Why haven't Trump claimed him as his cousin? It's being said that the other John is his cousin. So you will have to read the first book called Stolen Identity, because Stolen Identity lets you know how the deep state, the cabal, steals the identity of presidents, Hollywood actors, entertainers, and people high in office so that they can have access to their character, their identity, their wealth, and their posterity. And in that book, he describes how President Trump actually is his cousin and what happened to President Trump. Now, many, many reporters have discussed some of the things that John Fitzgerald Kennedy Jr. shares about President Trump. What I will say here is that President Trump, or the Trump name, is a name that the alliance, the global alliance, Earth Alliance, has used to destroy the deep state. There are many people playing the roles of Trump. There are many people that have come out and said there are 2 Trumps or more. But the Trump name, the Trump avatar, the Trump presence, even the meaning of trumping something is very, very telling as to why they chose that name. So why hasn't Trump acknowledged John Fitzgerald Kennedy Jr.? I will say, let's bring him on and we'll let John Fitzgerald Kennedy Jr. tell his story from his perspective. But the deep state took out his father, his mother, his sister Carolyn, and most or much of his bloodline. They then took John, John's mom, John Fitzgerald Kennedy Jr.'s mom, Jacqueline, married Aristotle Onassis for protection, because they all marry each other, right? And JFK Jr. has stated that his father, his stepfather, Onassis, was very important to him. He loved him. He treated him and his mom very well. But the deep state then killed him or unalived him, Aristotle Onassis. And that is when John Fitzgerald Kennedy Jr., also known as David Keith Quigley, was sent or sold into the Quigley family. I've talked to you all about how Rena Houston, Whitney Houston's eldest daughter that most people don't know about, was also sold to the deep state, to another family. So John Fitzgerald Kennedy Jr., when he was sold to the Quigleys, was given a name called David Keith Quigley. And that is his government name. That's the name he goes by on Facebook. So he wrote the first book called Stolen Identity. The second one is called The Historian's Tale. You guys keep talking in the chat. I want to get right into the book because it's is my day to have the grandchildren. So they'll be coming, bum rushing me, walking in the door very soon. So let's get into the book. The book, family, is an interview style. And I really, really like the book because it's different from the first book. The first book was riveting. It was heart-wrenching. It was telling. It was revealing. It made me cry. It broke my heart. I had to take time away from the book Stolen Identity to catch my breath, to reflect, to rejuvenate, because David Keith Quigley, also known as John Fitzgerald Kennedy Jr., told stories of being kidnapped, raped, sexually assaulted, anally penetrated, put through MK Ultra mind control. And he tells the stories about seeing murders and how he was forced to do certain things. That first book was very, very riveting. It was heart-wrenching. And it is a must read so that you can know how deep the deep state, the cabal, the Illuminati goes as it relates to how they treat their own, how they're all a part of one secret club, how they treat the children, and how they manipulate the children. And when they manipulate, mind control, abuse, and sexually assault the children, they can control the parents. Even if the children are put into secret service, the secret service is run by the CIA and the FBI or the government. They're all criminals. They all must be dismantled. So that first book was very, very telling. He even reveals how he was raised with the fake John Fitzgerald Kennedy Jr., George Onassis, the son of Aristotle Onassis and Maria Callas, his mistress. I mean, and he just does a very phenomenal job of letting you have a glimpse into his life and the lives of other high-profile politicians and entertainers who all know each other, all are intermarried, all go to school together. You got to read that first book called Stolen Identity. But the second one, The Historian's Tale, is different. And I like this one too, because this was a co-authored book by Miss Maxwell, Mary Maxwell. And she went to Arizona to meet with John Fitzgerald Kennedy Jr. in order to talk to him about his stories and to help him write this book. So the book, in the back, it says, John F. Kennedy Jr. is the son of President Kennedy and Jacqueline. The book tells how he was hidden from around 1968 till 2024. He sort of walked with the big boys and is thus in danger right now as we speak. That's very true. He deserves the protection of decent people. And she asked, is there a chance that this isn't Kennedy's son? And maybe he made it all up. She said, yeah, it's a 0.0001% chance. Let's investigate. And she did. She talked to him herself. She interviewed him. And the first half of her book, this book is the stories that he told and her proof of who he is. And then the second half of the book, she tells about incidents that are related to the book. It is Mary Maxwell's views on related topics. So again, this book is an interview style book. In the first part of the book, he gives a timeline of events where he talks about births, marriages, news headlines, and deaths. JFK Jr. was born, he was born November the 25th. But his dad, JFK Sr., won the election November the 8th, 1960. And then 17 days later, JFK Jr. was born. 17 days later, JF Kennedy Jr. was born after his dad had won the elections. I thought that was very interesting because you know how we feel about the 17th letter and how we know that's involved with or attached to the Q movement. So he was born November the 25th. So he just recently had a birthday a couple months ago in 1960. And in that book, he talks about his father's bloodline, his grandfather, his great-grandfather, and how his father's bloodline is actually Irish. So those of you that are a part of the Irish bloodline, you know that is a very important bloodline for you all. And those of you that are part of the Moors, you know that the Irish and the Moors are connected. And the Irish, when they came to America, were very mistreated because of their Moorish bloodline. They still had that the Moors or the Moabite or that so-called black bloodline that wasn't completely washed out. So that's why a lot of them had that red hair, that kinky coarse hair, but it was red. When they came to America, they were mistreated. And a lot of the Irish, not talking about the rich, wealthy ones, but they got involved in the underground economy because they were not considered white. For those of you who don't know that, he doesn't describe that in his book, but I know that from my historical perspective from doing research. The Irish were not considered white. So many of them, just like the Italians, had to figure out how to survive in capitalism here in America. So thank you for continually chiming in. Thank you for the Cash App blessing I just heard, and I'll acknowledge you all in a few minutes. So John Fitzgerald Kennedy Jr. in his book talks about the Irish bloodline and how his dad was actually recognized in Ireland, and how his dad and his grandfather had some type of dual citizenship. And JF Kennedy Jr. probably can still lay claim to his Irish bloodline. And in Ireland, they still acknowledge JF Kennedy Sr. as being Irish, and they have like a whole library of information on him there. So JFK Jr. does talk a little bit about his Irish bloodline, about his grandfather, and he talks about how his grandfather was a part of the secret society, and how all presidents are parts of secret societies, or I always say an occult, so to speak. And I don't say that in a disrespectful way. I mean, they're just different. They come from a certain bloodline. And so he doesn't really know how deep that bloodline is, whether they're not part of the Illuminati, but he does acknowledge that you have to be somewhat part of the Illuminati or this secret society bloodline in order to even be recognized or considered for the presidency. In this book, he also talks about how he was acknowledged by the mainstream media, and I'll read just a few excerpts. How the mainstream media does acknowledge John Fitzgerald Kennedy Jr., and I'll show you how they do it. They kind of do it in a sly way. In the book, he discusses secrets. He talks about marriages. He talks about how he got married, and he talks about how his wife went away once he got married, and had a serious, interesting situation. So when he got married, I'm talking about the son, Junior, he had a child. He and his wife, he stayed home, but his wife and the child went away for a visit. And when she came back with a different child. Well, in the book, he goes into a little bit more details about how that happened, how he knew that different child wasn't his, and how he even knew the first child wasn't his, because when you are in secret service, or when you are part of the cabal where you're hidden away, they not only perform MK Ultra mind control on you, but they do mutilation on you. And they had actually done a vasectomy on him when he was a young man. So he knew that the first child by his wife wasn't his, but he never told his wife. Then when she went away, they sent her back with a second child that he ended up raising. The reason why I bring up the son is because the day before he was to do an interview with me on my show, his son was unalived. And it was very, very hard for JFK Jr., also known as David Keith Quigley, to come on my show and do that interview. And we don't know if it was from heat exhaustion, because they do live in the desert in Arizona, or if his son was unalived through foul play or some kind of MK Ultra mind control thing being kind of set off, because as you guys know, a lot of these people high up are chipped. So JFK Jr. goes into more details about his vasectomy, about his son, about his marriage to his wife, come on in, and those type of things. Excuse me, family. My grandchildren just walked in. Y'all can go ahead in the living room. Thank you for the flower.
You're welcome.
So can you guys hear me, family? Somebody says JFK was a Clooney. I heard that. Hi, Love BN. Nubian, it's good to see you. I heard that too, sis. So getting back into the book, I'm not going to tell you all the details. Okay. I'm just going to give you some highlights from the book because when we bring him on, he can go into details. So JFK Jr. talks about on page 20 what MK Ultra mind control is. And most people in Hollywood, including the politicians, go through some type of MK Ultra mind control programming. This programming involves a lot of things. And he says in his book how the CIA revealed this through, they declassified some information to let you all know, to let us know that MK Ultra involves electric torture, gaslighting, starving, mutilation, rape, sexual penetration or anal penetration, money laundering, and unaliving or murdering. And sometimes they would even force the children or the people in office to mutilate or grape or unalive people when they're under this type of MK Ultra mind controlling programming. You have to read the two books to understand how deeply this goes and why President Trump, as an aside, is dismantling the deep state, the cabal, the government that is controlling the masses. So he even reveals how on page 23, Mel Gibson and Corey Feldman had told us child abuse is actually institutionalized in Hollywood. And this child abuse is part of the MK Ultra mind controlling program. This is what JFK Jr. went through when he was in the protection program, when he was hidden out after his father was unalive. He also talks more in depth about the Illuminati. He talks about wealth of these people that are high in office and how the wealth comes from, maybe some good things like oil business or real estate, but a lot of it also involves money laundering, death, and stolen identities. This is why, people kept trying to tell us in the 1980s and early 1990s that the original Donald Trump was unalived in 1989 in a plane crash. So when John Fitzgerald Kennedy Jr. said that to me, I wasn't that shocked because we had heard that. We heard it back then. We heard many of the reporters that were a part of, who was that? I would just say many of the reporters that weren't that well known were saying this. We also heard, who was that? Dick Gregory said there were two Trumps. Dick Gregory was a comedian and he ran for presidency. He actually said he won, but that the cabal had, miscounted the votes. Dick Gregory was a man classified as Black or African American that was a comedian, but he was also a political commentary. He gave political commentary. He said there were two Trumps. My left hand is itching. Also, the guy that wrote Gifted Hands, can't think of that doctor's name, that was a part of the urban housing development under the first Trump administration. He said there were two Trumps, one with the red tie, one with the blue tie. But I'm just saying that we had heard stories that President Trump was unalived in a plane crash in 1989. Whether people believe that or not is, up for debate. It's not my business. I'm just saying that the reason why they do those certain things, for those of you saying it didn't happen, but you want to know why they would do that, is so they can steal the identity and the wealth of that person and they can control the narratives. Now, it is possible that President Trump, some of you will say, escaped the plane crash, and that's true. It is possible that he was unalived, but we do know that somebody else is playing the Trump character. We've seen many different Trumps where he's taller than usual. We've seen many different Trumps with different colored ties. We can tell by the hair. We can tell by his mannerisms that there are different actors playing this person known as Donald Trump. So there have been different actors that have played other people. And we know about this because we know about replacements in Hollywood. Well, in the second book, he goes into a little bit of detail about that. And he kind of fills in the gaps in the second book called The Historian's Tale. He also talks about Black Ops and how he participated in Black Ops, how David Keith Quigley, also known as John Fitzgerald Kennedy Jr., was trained. So he had in military, he is trained in the Army and the Navy basic training tactics, as well as performing in Black operations or Black ops. He doesn't quite remember or know if he was involved in the CIA and other areas of the CIA, or like, certain things like maybe dealing with mutilation of other people, unalivement or what, because he has been traumatized. So he's not quite sure about the CIA, but he does know he participated in Black ops or operations. He also goes into details about how he escaped the plane crash that could have taken his life. He was involved in the same plane crash as his stepbrother. This, if my memory serves me correct, he was involved in the same plane crash with his stepbrother, George, who was the body double, his body double, John Fitzgerald Kennedy Jr.'s body double. He was involved in that plane crash, and he talks about how he was noticing that they were about to crash, and how George, or JFK Jr., the fake one, was arguing with the wife. And at the same time, the plane was losing its traction. And he talks about what was happening at the time, what his thoughts were, how he could see the plane was about to crash. And he gives in detail how he survived it. Because people keep saying, if he was involved in a plane crash, how did he live? But you got to remember, this man was militarily trained. He knows how to protect himself. He knows how to grab certain things to make sure he's safe in case he lands in water. He knows how to survive crashes. He knows how to do certain things that I won't go into because he describes it in the book. But I love the way he fills in the gaps of what happened that fateful day that his stepbrother, crashed in that plane crash. But it was not the real JFK Jr. The real JFK Jr., again, was in the plane with him. He actually grew up with him, went to the same schools with him, participated in Hollywood movies with him, different activities. And I'll bring him on the show so he can tell you in detail how that happened, where they were actually growing up together and real together. Remember, his father is Aristotle Onassis, and Aristotle Onassis is or was the husband of JFK Jr.'s mom, Jackie. So he talks about how that plane crash happened. And I love that he fills in the details. He does such a phenomenal job of letting you actually relive that very traumatic experience and what that was like, and how once he survived a crash, he was surrounded by a lot of people, military people, people high up in office, the government, that pulled him out of the waters and resuscitated him. And because the waters was very, very icy, they were cold. It was cold. He was going in and out of consciousness, but they were right there. They covered him with blankets. It was almost as if they knew it was about to happen. And they made sure that he survived that traumatic experience. So family, he goes into detail for all of you that want to know how that happened. Somebody asked, if Donald Trump is fake, could it be possible that the dismantling of the deep state is fake, with the intent to deceive us into believing that they are on our side now? It's possible, but unlikely. The reason why I got into reporting all this is because I was actually contacted by these beings that told me they weren't human, and they told me what was happening. They told me to stop worrying. I did a whole video on that. They told me that they were here to stop the New World Order. They told me that their name was the Falcons. They told me that they put certain people in place to dismantle the New World Order. And they told me to raise the vibrational frequencies of the people all across the planet, and that they will help me do that. So that's how I even got into reporting all this. And that's when I started doing a deep dive into who President Trump is, why all this is happening. So yes, it's possible that dismantling is fake for some people, but it's highly unlikely. And in fact, this dismantling is happening in real time. And you can actually see it with your eyes when you look at all the things that I've been reporting, all the things that independent journalists have been reporting. You can see that this dismantling of the deep state is real. You can see the overturning that the Supreme Court of the United States did of the Chevron doctrine, which means that the government has to shrink, and all these fake entities that say they're part of the government have to go away because the Supreme Court of the United States declared them as unconstitutional and treasonous. So it's really happening in real time. But I will say that was a phenomenal question. It was a very good question. Even if it were fake, the fact that so many of us know how deep and sinister and evil the deep state is enough to wake up people and force the masses to stop buying into the slavery. Because a lot of us willingly participated in our own enslavement, even if it's through tacit agreement. We've been complicit in some regards of our own enslavement by tacit agreement, meaning that even if it wasn't a law, we kind of went along with certain things because we were tricked. But when you wake up and you say, I'm not going to be a slave anymore. I know you're wicked. I know you're evil. I'm not going to pay taxes because paying taxes is voluntary. And you wake up and you say, I'm not going to participate in the Department of Education. I'm going to educate my own children. Then they lose their power. Very, very good question. Thank you so much for that. So let's get back into the book. David Keith Quigley, also known as John Fitzgerald Kennedy Jr., describes how he was protected by a guy named Wayne. Wayne was also a part of the secret services or secret society. On one hand, it kind of seemed like Wayne was benevolent because Wayne would make sure that any type of traumatization that John went through wasn't, I guess it was vicious, but then he would appear out of nowhere and he would make sure that they didn't kill him. I'll put it that way. But Wayne also put him through a lot of rigorous training through the military. Wayne was kind of like in the shadows of allowing him to be abused, but not unalived. Wayne is a very important character in the life of John Fitzgerald Kennedy Jr. because it seems like he was his handler. He talks in detail about Wayne in his first book, but in his second part, it's almost like he is coming into some type of awakening of who Wayne really is, and that maybe that wasn't even his real name, that maybe his purpose was to handle him and to make sure that he went through some type of trauma, but again, that he would survive it for whatever reason. He also goes into the second book in detail about, or in some detail about, how he was protected by the Hells Angels. The Hells Angels is kind of like an outlaw motorcycle club or gang that we've always been told is evil and sinister. But the Hells Angels refuse to participate in the government's antics. The Hells Angels are an outlaw group because they know that the deep state is wicked, sinister, evil, and participates in enslaving people. Well, Jackie, John's mom, actually paid the Hells Angels before she died to make sure that he would be, forever protected. So it's really weird how, even though he was in protective custody and protected by the government and by Hells Angels, how he was still taken through these MK Ultra mind controlling programs that included mutilization, sexual abuse, anal penetration, and mutilation. And the reason why I keep bringing up anal penetration is because my training is in psychology, and I understand and understand from a psychological perspective why they do this, the deep state. They go through the back door or anally penetrate these children and even adults, because when you do that, you are accessing certain chakras, you are accessing, certain portals in the body that opens up a whole different world. They know this. So they go through the anal cavity, and what happens is not only does a portal open, but your brain divides or fractures into many different pieces. And the way it plays out for that victim is they develop many different personalities so that they can manage the trauma. So when you anally penetrate a person and that you open that portal and allow different spirits to come through, again, your brain factors and becomes fractured. You develop different personalities, and then one part of your brain protects you from remembering all those traumas, but another part of your brain just develops into a whole bunch of different personalities. And one of the reasons why these people in the FBI and CIA do that to their victims is because now you can program them that way, and you can send those children on missions, and they will do the mission as another personality. It's deep. And this is why I tell people, be careful what type of sexual acts you engage in. That's not my business what you engage in, but be careful that you're not opening certain portals to allow energies into your vessel. So anal penetration is a part of this MK Ultra mind controlling programming. It is evil, it is wicked, it is sinister, because they not only use their phallus, but they use objects. Okay, so this type of abuse is heinous. And you have a lot of people walking around here that have been severely traumatized. And when they're trying to tell their stories, people are laughing at them, making fun of them, saying that they're lying instead of listening to the stories. But I have chosen to listen to the stories, and I'm very, very grateful that I did listen to the stories and bring John Fitzgerald Kennedy Jr. on my platform, because what he recently did is amazing. He recently just filed a wrongful death lawsuit over his mother Jackie's death. And that's very, very, very significant, because now people are going to have to start looking at things differently and acknowledging him as being the true survivor of JFK Sr. and Jackie. So again, he just most recently filed a wrongful death lawsuit over his mom's death. And he mentioned it in his book that he might do that. And now I see that he did. And I'm going to show you a brief clip where somebody that goes by the name of Sweet Tea made that announcement. So back to the book, he talks about how he just might file a wrongful death lawsuit over his mom's death. And he'll probably do it over his dad's death immediately afterwards. So he just did this. Well, I just became aware of this a couple of days ago. So back to the book, he talks about how, the deep state will do certain things to you. Sometimes they'll take your life, and then sometimes they'll traumatize you to the point where you wish they took your life. He reveals how he lived a life of knowing who he is, and people trying to act like he didn't exist, even though they knew who he was. He goes in the book a little bit of detail about, the jobs that he did as an everyday person, and how the deep state, the Illuminati, the FBI, CIA, through those programs, controls which jobs you're allowed to do, how much money you are to make, and if you are even to be paid. Okay. He shows a couple pictures in his book, although the first book, he shows detailed pictures where you can see like his detached earlobe. And he says, thank God for my detached earlobe, because the same detached earlobe he has as a child, he still has today as an adult. So let me show you just a little bit about, before we get into the wrongful death lawsuit, I want to show you a little bit about the reviews, because the reviews are very, very telling of his first book. Keep chiming in, family. I'll read some of your comments in a minute. Hi, sweetheart. He calls me Kia Pet. Hi, John. Yes, John does need to keep himself safe. I agree, and protected. Blessings, family. So in the book, I'm looking at page 45. That's his brother, his stepbrother here. We're looking from The Historian's Tale, John Fitzgerald Kennedy Jr.'s second book. He says, personally, Time and all the other mainstream news outlets are aware of me, but they ain't telling it. Yet nowadays we have an alternative press. And let's see how long it takes until the straight press comes around and tells my story. My co-author, Mary Maxwell, annoyed by her inability to get straight blurbs for the back cover of this book, has provided a few suggestions. Oh, these are a few suggestions. Okay. The Washington Post. What a shock this book is. Who would have dreamed that a man living almost as a tramp is the son of a beloved president? The second one, this must be the book of the decade, if not the century. Congratulations to the child who lived through the torture and grew up to be an exceptionally responsible and caring citizen. The New York Times. Mary Maxwell, an old Bostonian Irish Catholic. Oh, that lets me know, that reveals why she's interested in the book. She's an Irish Catholic. She's done us proud. After revealing the truth about the marathon bombing, she has now got the backstory on the life of JF Kennedy Jr. So, when I first read that, I thought they were saying this was actually some of the reviews from mainstream media, but it looks like those are just her suggestions of how it could come out. I'm gonna have to read that a second time to see exactly, or I'll ask him why he put that in the book. But when you look here on the bottom of that page 45, he says, mainly I have been recognized by podcasters. The first big break came from Dr. Pruitt. And by today, January 15, 2025, Sue Greenwald has interviewed me numerous times as well. So he mentioned me for the first time here. He says his first book, Big Break, came from the Dr. Pruitt show. Thank you so much, JFK Jr. I am honored that you mentioned me in your book. And thank you, family, for listening to his story. He says, these friendly shows gave me a platform from which to ask my lions, that's what he calls his audience, to help spread the word even further. Thank you, precious lions. Then he goes and he talks about the reviews that are received from his first book called Stolen Identity, which you guys can find on Amazon. And he talks about the bad reviews and the good reviews, which I thought was very fair. One review that he gave, I really, really like. It says, as you read the book, the first book, Stolen Identity, you actually experience what John Fitzgerald Kennedy Jr. goes through, and you try to fight back and escape with him. What the reader learns is that the so-called government is a deep state, evil, mafia-style cabal that controls every segment of our society, including politics, economics, education, arts, and entertainment. They control communications, religion, sex, and more. I, Kia Pruitt, the person who wrote this review, have spoken to John F. Kennedy Jr. several times. He is very kind and compassionate as a gentleman, despite all that he has endured. I admire his courage and resolve to restore his father's legacy. We must get this story out to the masses. Justice for John F. Kennedy Jr. is justice for all. And he goes into more details about my review, and he shares other reviews that, were done by many different independent readers that I thought was very, very enlightening, encouraging, and just good to hear. I appreciate that he also gave negative reviews, because I think it's important for people to hear both sides, whether or not people believe the story, why they believe the story, and why they don't. The purpose of me coming on today was actually just to review his second book. The first part of the book is written by John Fitzgerald Kennedy Jr., also known as David Keith Quigley. That's him. The second part of the book is written again by his co-author called Mary Maxwell. She reviews just a little bit about his story, but she reviews and give her views on related topics. In this book, he also, on page 48, shows the certificate of live birth that was given to him by the government, but it is in the name of David Keith Quigley, which is really interesting that they will not give him his original birth certificate. But it is a certificate of live birth. He was able to get a driver's license from this and some other things, but they will not release his original certificate of live birth for his name, John Fitzgerald Kennedy Jr. He has taken many blood tests, but you got to know who controls the blood tests, the deep state, the Illuminati. But he does give and provide some proof for who he is in this book. That's why I highly recommend it. And when you read this book alongside the first book, you get a clear vision of how he lived his life and how he how he experienced life through the eyes of being a president's son that was mistreated and abused and lived like beneath, not like a regular person, but like a traumatized victim. Like he didn't even get the opportunity to live a normal life at all. And when he came out just a few years ago, he started remembering a lot of things that he had relived. And as he tells his stories, more and more comes out, and his lions or his audience shows him different things that kind of jogs his memory. But I think that the most important thing that has come out of this book is our awakening of how evil the deep state is, and our showing him love and support. And that inspired him to file this wrongful death lawsuit over his mother's death. And this is just happening right after President Trump released the JFK Sr. files. Now, I have this feeling deep in my soul that JFK Jr. is going to be acknowledged. The way I see that happening is that once the deep state is dismantled by Trump, Trump will then step down because Trump is the CEO and commander-in-chief of the United States Incorporated. So he will step down with the sinking ship. The captain always goes down with the ship. Remember, he not only is the CEO of the deep state, or the United States Incorporated, excuse me, but he's using their tools against them, the executive orders, to dismantle them. Then, according to Dr. Pruitt, he will step down, the republic will be restored, and JFK Jr. will be acknowledged, and we will go by the by constitutional law, and that will transition into common law or tribal laws. So I want you to look at the certificate of live birth here. And when you get the book and read the stories and read how he has tried to get his real birth certificate, how, you know, he does provide some proof of who he is, and how he is moving forward to sue the United States for the wrongful death of his mom. And then later on, he'll sue the United States for the wrongful death of his dad. He also, on page 53, talks about how all of the things that the deep state is doing, and not only done to his father, his mom, and his family, but what they're doing now is treasonous. And he says, and he backs me up because I've said this before on page 53, that the penalty of treason or for treason is death. I said that on one of my lives, and my video got taken down, and my channel got taken down for me saying that the penalty for treason is death. So if this video gets taken down, or my channel gets taken down, then just look at it as it's a sign for me to stop reporting, because I am tired. You know, I went through years of people talking about me, telling me I was a liar, telling me I was crazy, calling me racist. How can you be racist? You know, tell me, you know, you're classified as Black, you're a Black woman, you hate Black people because you support Trump, you hate Black people because you are against the deep state, you don't support the FBI and the CIA. They called me an Uncle Tom. I've been threatened by rape. I've been threatened to be unalived, especially early on in 2017 when I was reporting in support of the alliance taking down the deep state, and in support of the Trump name taking down the deep state. I was threatened by men. I had to have my sons to protect me. I've had my sons to have to man up against some other men who threatened my life. I've been on many platforms where I would be reporting the news or going on other people's podcasts in the so-called Black community to warn us and to wake us up. And on those platforms, people would come on and try to discredit me. And even some of the people on the shows that were hosting the shows would invite me on, acting or seeming like they were in alliance with me, but then participate in tearing down my character or making fun of me. But then they had an awakening, and they didn't come right out and apologize, but they did say, I can see that Dr. Pruitt made a lot of sense, or I can see that Dr. Pruitt was right about, you know, the deep state, or she was right about there being an alliance that's taken down the deep state. Or Dr. Pruitt was right about a pandemic coming, because I sounded the alarm before the pandemic even came. And I wrote an article that went viral telling people that we were about to go on lockdown, that we were about to have curfews put upon us, that the military was going to take over and that the National Guard was going to take over and that we're going to all be locked in our doors. This came from, remember the beings, I had some visitors that came and told me stuff was going to happen. And then my research led me down a very, very serious path to figuring out what was happening. So some people call me a prophet. Some people call me a false prophet. People call me many different things. They try to discredit me all on social media. Even the people who run and control social media took down many of my videos, many of my channels, stole my money. They're still stealing my money. They still owe me tens of thousands of dollars. But I'm saying all that to say that when you're called, when you're sent, as Chief Max says, you will continue to do the work, even though you go through a lot of emotional abuse. So I said that to say, if this channel gets taken down, it probably won't be another one. I'll start doing something else. But you can find me on Rumble. I do have a show, Dr. Pruitt show on Rumble, and you'll find me on different other people's podcasts that have put up my videos. So I brought that out by saying that I'm going to say out loud that the penalty for treason is death. The deep state has committed treason. The United States Incorporated has committed treason. The FBI has committed treason. The CIA has committed treason. CPS coming into your home, stealing your children, they have committed treason. Homeowners Association and their directors that stolen money and collecting your fees and telling you cannot grow vegetables in your own yard have committed treason. The Department of Motor Vehicles, or whatever, the DMV, they have committed treason. All 441 agencies, including the IRS, they have committed treason. The so-called government is a cabal, deep state, money laundering, sex trafficking, rapist organization that has committed treason, and the penalty for treason is death. Off with your heads. I'll be glad to see you go. God's people have to be liberated. And if people like me and John Fitzgerald Kennedy Jr., the real living son of the legend John Kennedy Sr., have to be the lone voices that will tell the unadulterated truth, have our money stolen, our channels taken away, and he's been through even more than I have been. He's been literally raped and abused and psychologically traumatized, not only by the deep state and the government and the people that were supposed to protect him, but by many of us, the audience, whom tries to make this man look foolish. But you know what? We're going to keep speaking anyway. And you're welcome for your liberation. You're welcome. But at some point, we will all stop talking, because the time has come for truth to be revealed, and the time has come for us to awaken so that we can fully transition into the golden era where we will use the money that the Most High has given us, the wisdom, the information, and the knowledge to rebuild our countries and our legacies and restore and rejuvenate the human spirit. John Fitzgerald Kennedy Jr. says on page 53, per the United States Constitution, a penalty specifically available for treason is death. Death. So for you all that have been asking me, why are so many government offices being closed? Why are they downsizing the government? Why are corporations closing? Why are banks closing? It's because many of them were funded by money laundering money, child sex trafficking money, human trafficking money, as well as they participated in a lot of nefarious activities. So their time has come to an end. They have to cease to exist. And many of them that were the head of these corporations, head of these banks, head of these government operations, they have been put through military tribunals and they've been hung at the gallows, because the penalty for treason is death. I'll keep saying it. The penalty for treason is death. The penalty for treason is death. So when the Supreme Court of the United States this summer overturned the Chevron doctrine, essentially what they said is all those government agencies, that had created themselves did so unlawfully. All the ones that I mentioned, FBI, CIA, it's 441 of them that I have a list of them. They created laws that were not in alignment with the Constitution for our the Constitution for our republic, the Constitution for America. They created these so-called laws that are not laws. They are legalities, statutes, codes, and policies that are outside the realm of the law. And then they sic their policy enforcers, called police officers, after us, force us to pay fines and penalties if we don't abide by them, access your trust by locking you up and paying themselves after you've paid the penalties and fines. And because they've all been in cahoots with one another to enslave us and to take away our right to liberty, life, liberty, in the pursuit of happiness, the Supreme Court of the United States said they have committed treason. The Chevron doctrine allowed the government to get away with this. And each time we try to appeal them, or we say we're not going to pay their fines and penalties, or we try to bring somebody up to the courts, the government, the court system would defer us right back to those agencies and say, they are the experts. You have to abide by what they say. You have to pay the fines and penalty, and we have to arrest you. And they're judges who would don themselves in a black robe because they were actually conducting our funeral in their court system. They went right along with it. So the Supreme Court of the United States said all of these government agencies that created all these laws not in alignment with the Constitution must cease and desist. They went a step further and said all of the judges that went along with this, allowed this to happen, you've committed treason as well. And all the judges that knew of the judges that allowed this to happen committed misprision of treason. This is why Donald Trump, who is under court order, being told what to do by Earth Alliance and the Galactic Federation, whatever you want to call it, these entities that are not human, he's under order, whoever playing his character, to dismantle the deep state. So people will cry, they'll moan, they'll complain because they're losing their jobs, and I feel the pain. But at least you're being given an out with some type of initiative, whether you're given a buyout or just told to leave with just a little bit of money. At least you know that the government will cease to exist. We don't need the government. Govern means control, to manage, meant the mind, to control and govern the mind. Supreme Court of the United States said they have to be dismantled. This is what we see playing out. So to the person that asked earlier, could it be that that's fake, that they're just lying to us, that this is happening? It is a possibility, but that's not what's happening. They're literally being overturned. People are really losing their jobs because they were a part, unfortunately, of the federal government. The Department of Education is literally being dismantled right before our eyes. The monetary system is, and the IRS, as well as many of those government agencies. But a lot of people that were over them, not your average workers, a lot of people that were over them were part of secret societies. And when you're part of secret societies, some secret societies, I'm sure, have benevolent parts of them, but they will blackmail you and say you have to participate in certain acts that were crimes against humanity. And unfortunately, this is affecting a lot of families when the head of these organizations are taken down. And I feel for those families, but it has to happen. President Trump alluded to the dismantling of the deep state when he initiated Executive Order 138/18, and he said any persons involved in crimes against humanity will have their assets frozen. This is what we see happening, family. So the deep state, yes, is being dismantled. President Trump was given the task of doing that. He then tasked Elon Musk, a billionaire, to head the charge of taking down the deep state through the Department of Government Efficiency, also known as DOGE. With all due respect, Christopher says, Christopher Creer, thank you for joining us, Dr. Kia. If these statements are so, the current government structure is de facto and ad hoc. So how are they still operating with all of this known information being spread? Well, they still operating because they still control, for now, the money. They still, for now, control the media. And a lot of us are still going along with it. Okay. A lot of us are still going along with watching mainstream media. But imagine if we all turned the television off. Imagine if we all just stopped paying our taxes. So the IRS is being dismantled, but you're talking about organizations that were here for hundreds of years, some of them. It takes time to dismantle them. That was an excellent question, but we can speed this up. The Supreme Court of the United States have overturned the Chevron doctrine and said that all of these institutions committed treason. They are unconstitutional. They violated our rights. They have to be dismantled, but we can make them move quicker by not agreeing, turning off the television, not paying your taxes, not going to work. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just saying, like, if everybody stopped working, which I know we would starve, but I'm just saying, or if you don't want to just not participate, you can participate at the state level. I've said this many times that the 10th Amendment for our Constitution, for our republic, states that local governments and local communities have more power than the federal government. If we operate at the state level and pressure state lawmakers or become state lawmakers ourselves or pressure state lawmakers to hasten many of these activities, it will get done. It will get done. But I've shown you proof that it's really happening. You can call the IRS today and have a hard time getting through because the light's on, but nobody's home. The United States Treasury Department controls all the money, and the duties of the IRS have been put under the United States Treasury Department. What else has happened? President Trump or the Trump administration has halted those 87,000 workers that were supposed to be brought on into the IRS to force us to pay taxes. He's halted that program and said, no, you're not coming here. We've seen many Supreme Court cases overturn lots of laws that I don't want to get into because I've done it on so many podcasts, but like overturning the federal government having the power of telling a woman what she can do with her body when they overturned Roe versus Wade. The Supreme Court of the United States ruling that state-sponsored banks can issue out their own gold-backed currencies. The Supreme Court of the United States stating that state-sponsored banks can now operate outside of the Federal Reserve central banking system. That's powerful. And issue their own gold-backed currencies. We see 46 states now repealing the state sales taxes from the sales of precious metals, thus reclaiming silver and gold as money. We see a lot of things happening that let us know that this is really happening, family. We are returning back to constitutional law, and we are regaining our power. I even did a report on how inflation is coming down. Gas prices are coming down. They came down a whole $1 here in Jacksonville, Florida, within the last week. The prices of eggs are coming down. Mortgages, the interest rates will soon come down. Houses are being dumped onto the market, real estate market, because a lot of these companies that owned real estate, apartment complexes, and commercial buildings are dumping them back out onto the market because people aren't paying these high rents, and these corporations are leaving. They're closing along with banks. Yeah, if you look across my channel, you see that I've been reporting on proof that the deep state is being dismantled. But I really appreciate that question. That was an outstanding question, Brother Christopher. Dan says driver's license under SCOTUS says they're not needed. John versus Smith. Thank you. Absolutely. So Love Being Nubian, who is our moderator, it's so good to see you. I was just thinking about you this morning, hoping you were well. Says people have to wake up and hopefully understand why they are losing their jobs. Okay. Really, it is a good reason why it's happening. People are losing their jobs in the government because we have to close the government because they've been controlling us and forcing us to abide by certain rules that were actually against us and unconstitutional and treasonous. Yes, we have the right to travel. We are travelers, Don says. We're not drivers. Driving has to do with dealing with commercial, okay, moving things from one place to another. That's why truckers have to have a license. But we have a right as free agents and sovereign beings to travel from place to place. We don't drive, we travel. We don't need a license to do that. So the DMV will go away. Thank you. ENAEEW says, thank you, Dr. Pruitt. You're on fire. Thank you. So after Jasara Nasara, Don says they have 120 days to have another vote. Yes, thank you so much. And this proves my point that Trump will step down. Jody says, thank you, Jody. Government controls men, the church controls women, schools control children. Wow, that's deep. Wow. Thank you for that. And thank you for the Cash App blessing. I hear it going off. So let me pause for a minute to say thank you, family. For those of you who support my work, I really appreciate you. Your being here and sharing with me, and just listening and sharing intel and supporting each other is very, very much appreciated. I appreciate it very much, and I'm grateful. So you don't have to send money. You just, your time, your energy, your being here is enough for me. Having said that, I do want to acknowledge people that are giving. Thank you so much, Sister Andrea Hayes. She says she appreciates me. Thank you, Sister Gloria Porter, for sending a Cash App blessing. She says, thank you for the awesome information. Norma Salazar says, thank you, Dr. Kia Pruitt. I'm sending you love. And she sent a blessing, a huge blessing. Thank you so much. Milton Griggs says, this is a donation. Thank you so much, Milton. He says, I love you. Scott says, thank you, sister, for all that you do. You're welcome. Thank you so much. Han Lee says, this is a gift to you, Dr. Pruitt. Thank you. Sister Carol Rashford, who often sends a Cash App blessing, sends her love. Thank you so much. And for those of you that ask, my Cash App is $ Mama Kia 13, MAMAKIA 13. Barbara Pittman sent me a blessing. Thank you so much. $50. I appreciate you. God bless you. Thank you for your sacrifice. Sister Deidre Halt says, I appreciate you, and sends a purple heart and a Cash App blessing. Simply Love says, thank you so much for the information. Jean Mason, I think I acknowledged you yesterday, says this is a seed offering. Thank you for your information. Pauletta says, I love your show. You always raise my vibrations. Thank you, Pauletta. And I tell you, I had a visit from some people, some beings. They were brown skinned. They had locks. Some of them had their locks wrapped up in like a white, like head wrap. They were men, women, and children. And they had on all white. There were men, women, and children again. But the one who stepped forward was a woman. And she told me, stop being afraid of what they've been telling you that's happening in your government. This was in 2017 when I had this visitation, or 2016, somewhere. I think it was 2016. They said, stop being afraid. And I said, who are you? And the woman said, we are the Falcons. And they were like highly jovial. They had high vibrations. Like they were just so happy. I could feel this joy radiating from their being. She said, the New World Order was put in place to enslave humanity and to kill the human race, but we have come to stop that. And so the woman who stood in front of them looked me dead in the eyes and said, you have to stop worrying. She said, you need to raise, I'm getting chills just reiterating what she said. You have to raise the vibrational frequencies of the entire planet by telling people that we have halted all of these activities that were propagated to enslave humanity. And I asked her, I said, well, why me? And why do you look like me? And she asked me, why wouldn't I look like you? I am you. And I said, well, who are all these people that are with you? She said, we are the Falcons. And we've come to stop all of the human activity that will cause you all to die. Stop worrying. She said, the more you raise the vibrations of the planet, the more people will become more positive, and we will use that energy, your own energy, to liberate you. And she told me about a lot of different things about diet, how we need to change our diet, stop eating salt, stop eating sugar, how we need to, drink more water. She told me how we were to start to focus on all the good things that are happening and to focus on only positive news and information. And she said, just like the negative entities use fear and trauma to control you, because you emit loosh, or that psychic energy called loosh, and how those entities use that and they feed on it and they eat it, and it makes them enlarge and bigger. The benevolent beings that are here, uses our high vibrational frequencies to help liberate us. So she told me a lot of things in it was just a quick time that she visited me. This whole group visited me, but she said, raise the vibrational frequencies of the planet and give this information out to as many people as possible. Once she and these people that were with her left, I immediately felt a surge of joy enter my body and positivity. And I felt so empowered to get out this information. And I went on a deep dive of research. And it just seems like I started getting all type of dreams of downloads and visions. And I was able to see a lot of things beforehand. That's how I foretold the global shutdown and the pandemic that was coming. But Chief Mack always says some of us were not born, we were sent. And that's how I feel about you all, the soul family. You were sent. That's why you're here. You're here to support me, to encourage me, to help me, to lift me up. And I'm here to do the same for you. And we're doing the same by taking in the good information and not only taking it in, but spreading it and sharing it so that humanity can be liberated. So I know I started off this podcast talking about John Fitzgerald Kennedy Jr. and his second book, but I also wanted to let you all know that you're very important in this process of getting out the truth. So you can like the video, share the video, send it to your family members, subscribe to the channel if you want, or you can just intake the information for yourself to encourage you and then share that. Share that along with what you know and who you are to help uplift your family members, because we have come to a time where people are waking up and they know that something has been happening behind the scenes to keep us enslaved. It's almost like we've been walking in a daze, family, for centuries. It's almost like we've been living a real life Truman Show. But now we're having a massive awakening. And now people that were involved in MK Ultra mind programming, trauma, bribery, child trafficking, child sex trafficking. I'm just letting it all hang. I'm just saying everything I'm not supposed to say right now because YouTube can take my channel again. Maybe I want them to take it so I can finally get some rest. So a lot of those people that have been through that programming, they're coming out and they're speaking out. Whether it be in their books, like the first book that JFK Jr. wrote. The first book was called Stolen Identity. I have it here somewhere. Or the second one called The Historian's Tale, which you can find on lulu.com, as well as his website. And I'll bring it up. And when they tell their stories, it might seem incredible, family, but I would implore you and encourage you to at least have an open mind. Okay. Consider that what they're saying could really be true, and consider that it is their story. And not only have an open mind, but just imagine what it would be like if you had to go through life like that, because we've all been under MK Ultra mind controlling program through the mainstream media, through the Department of Education, through religion. If some religions say there's only one true God, another one say my way is the only way. Other religions say if your family members don't believe in this, and if they don't believe in my God, then you're not allowed to be around them. I know, because I've experienced it. I've experienced being told to stay away from my blood family because they didn't keep the 7th-day Sabbath. Okay. I don't blame the people for telling me that, because they were mind controlled, manipulated, and programmed. I love them. I understand and overstand how deep this programming is. Somebody told them the same thing. We've been mind controlled through the books that told us, that if you looked a certain way, you're a slave, and you'll be a perpetual slave for the rest of your life, and you'll be a victim. And then Hollywood movies came out to support those claims in the school books, that you came from Africa, that you were a slave, that your own people sold you into slavery and trafficking. You know how hurtful that is, how damaging that is to somebody's psyche? Then they told people from European descent, your family members enslaved these people that were classified as Black, and you should be guilty. You should feel bad. You should hate yourself. You're an enslaver. Even if you don't know anything about slavery, your bloodline didn't participate, just because of the color of your skin, you are an enslaver. And you don't even know that you're hateful and full of hate, but you are, because of the color of your skin. Do you know how manipulating that is? How traumatizing that is? I rebuke it. I reject it. Reject it in the name of my ancestors. In my own name, I reject that type of programming and MK Ultra abuse. So, family, we've all been through some type of programming and enslavement, regardless of your skin complexion. And if you are a part of religion, you know how deeply the psyche can be controlled. You can't hang around your family members. Your God is the only true God. Their God is evil. The seventh day people are weird. The first day people are against the Bible. The people that celebrate Easter and Christmas, they're pagans. When every single religion that has a holy day, a high day, a holiday, however you say, it's all based on what happens in the heavens with the stars and the moon. All of it has to do with what happened in the celestial realm, because as above, so below. All of it. So if that person is a pagan and that makes them evil, well, then guess what? You also go by what's happening in the celestial realm. Even if you're in the house of God, where I came up, a Hebrew Israelite, what do you call it? Messianic Jew. That's how we were classified. Messianic Jew, Hebrew Israelite, house of God, whatever. Hebrew Pentecostal. The feast days, the high holy days, the seventh day Sabbath is all based on what happens with the sun and the moon. All of the feast days that we Jews keep, or Hebrew people, Hebraic, from the Hebraic bloodline, the Passover, the Feast of Unleavened Bread, the Day of Atonement, the Feast of Trumpets, the Feast of Ingathering, the Day of Pentecost, all of it, Feast of Harvest, is all based on the moon. So are you a pagan? Or were you told you worship the only real, true, living God, and you're going to heaven because you keep the seventh day Sabbath and all of the holy days prescribed in Leviticus 23? And you're going to heaven because you don't eat pork. That's how I was taught. But the people who don't eat pork, they're sinners. Come on now. We've all been programmed, manipulated, and controlled. So what I'm saying is, we have to, please, we don't have to, but we should start listening to people's stories and having some empathy and compassion on them. Thank you so much. Somebody called me a hero. You're so wonderful. Thank you. Absolutely. Brother Don says, how can you save someone if you stay away from them? How can you help them? How can you encourage them? How can you pull them out of the trenches? How can you deliver them from hell, whether it be a proverbial hell or a real hell, if you stay away from them because their ideologies and their philosophy and their religion is different? The same thing they did through us through the pandemic and the shutdown, told us to stay away from our loved ones. And many of us suffered emotionally because of that separation. Brother Don says they can never pay him enough for what they took away from him, from JFK Jr. and his family. So if you want to know where you can get John Fitzgerald Kennedy Jr.'s books, Remember, his name is also David Keith Quigley. Thank you so much for the Cash App blessing. I appreciate you. Who is that? Loyal. I have to see. They send him. I can see the message in it. Loyal, determined. Thank you for the blessing. God bless you. This is where you can find John Fitzgerald Kennedy Jr.'s books on his website called therealjohnfkennedykjr.com. I'll put that in the chat for you. And I'm going to ask him to come back on, family. Well, I've interviewed him, I want to say 3 or 4 times, and I reviewed his first book and now his second book. So here, if you go to his book, this is him. It says the real JF Kennedy Jr. is back. After being replaced by Aristotle Onassis' son, George Onassis, whose mother is Maria Callas, John F. Kennedy Jr. was placed into witness protection and sent to live with the Quigleys in California, where he was abused, tortured, subjected to MK Ultra, and ultimately left for dead. His replacement, George, was later killed, and it was believed that John F. Kennedy Jr. was gone. Years passed without the people knowing the real truth, and that's all about to change because the truth is out. This is what he looks like now. This is him unveiling. I just love this man. He's such a gentle soul. He is. Stolen identity. This is the imposter. The guy we know is John Fitzgerald Kennedy Jr. and his dad, Aristotle. And look he looks just like his mom, Maria Callas. I don't know how good or how well you can see that. Thank you, Lovian Nubian, for the for the gift here on YouTube. Thank you so much. God bless you, sister. I love you so very much. Heaven smile on you. I appreciate you. Here also on his page, on his website, The Real John F. Kennedy Jr., he unveils his book, his first book, Stolen Identity. That's what it looks like. And you can get your copy by clicking on this. David Keith Quigley, also known as John F. Kennedy Jr., gives an in-depth detail of his profound journey through the veils of darkness cast by those that want to stay in power by any means necessary. And then it says just in his second book is being or has been revealed. The Historian's Tale, The Amazing Return of President Kennedy's Son. That's him right here. He shows some pictures. That's him here. He shows John. That was his replacement that you guys know. John, it's like an agent, a double agent. They're just really revealing who he is. John is different from JFK Jr. They give them nicknames, the replacements. This is the real JFK Jr. right here, and beside him is John because they grew up together. He gives a time analysis here. This is him. When you look at him alongside his pictures as a child, my God, they look just alike. And there's a place, there is also a website that shows all of JFK Jr., the real one, his roles in Hollywood, because he did act in Hollywood. You got to know that Hollywood actors, politicians, all the same group of people. They're either from the same bloodline or they intermarry. This is him giving the salute. He was trained to do this at his father's funeral. Here's a timeline again of what happened to his father. And of course, you can support him and share his story. In the gallery, you see some of the pictures here. You want to know where we are? We are on his website. Let me bring up his website. Where's his website? His website is therealjohnfkennedyjr.com. I'm going to put it in the chat. I know they say people are saying, wow, it's creepy. It's weird how, they've been lying to us so long. Esther says, greetings from the Netherlands with love. I like your honesty. I have the 2 books and 2 pendants. Wow. So that's where I was going. Thank you. You helped me actually remember. We're going to the pendant next. Here's JFK Sr. and his wife, Jackie, with the baby. This is John, the real JFK Jr., when he was born in his mom's arms. And you see him here with his dad. You see his earlobe. You can see his big ears. He still have these ears right here. This is him. It looks like him. On my right, that might be your left. I'm not sure. This is him. See him in the colorful shirt with the big ears. They call them detached earlobes. More pictures of John Fitzgerald Kennedy Jr. This must be, I don't know if this is John with him or not. These pictures are also in his book. Here's a more relatively recent picture of the real JFK Jr. before he cut his hair. This is Denzel Washington when he was a child. That's in his book. Here's John Fitzgerald Kennedy Jr. and some of the other children. They all grow up together. You got to hear what he says about Denzel Washington in that book. That's why information is coming out. A lot of us that watch Denzel Washington's work, many of us are in love with him, but we don't know what these people do behind the scenes and how they get down being controlled by the deep state. And he talks a little bit about that as it relates to Denzel Washington in his first book, Stolen Identity. More pictures. This is him again. This is him now. Remember, he was protected by the Hells Angels, so he carries the letters. I think they still protecting him, if you ask me. Oh, he's strapped, so don't touch him. He has this is his signature. Remember, he's been traumatized, so his signature might be a little different. He has a companion that we call Rockin' Robin. Her name is Robin. She met him when he came out as John Fitzgerald Kennedy Jr. They met, they fell in love, and she's been supporting him like emotionally and just giving him the love that he needs and just being that divine feminine that he needs and that nurturing that he needs. And, that presence that we bring to a man is very, very powerful. It's soothing. It's loving. It's amazing. So I want to give honor to Rockin' Robin for being that support system for our beloved John Fitzgerald Kennedy Jr. So you'll find all this on the website, and then you can go to shop. And this is the pendant that he's wearing, and he gave me a silver one. Y'all know I love silver. He's like, do you want to? No, he gave me a gold one. He said, do you want gold, silver, or the rainbow? And his companion said, I know which one she wants. They gave me a gold one. So they have different colors here. If you can choose your color, choose your size. They're $111. They're called a healing pendant. And I told John, I said, I didn't even know it was a healing pendant. But he had sent it to me as a gift. He didn't know that I was having trouble sleeping at that time. And I had trouble sleeping, and I called the Meta Center where I talked to Dr. Tony Vortex, who's over the Meta Center. That was Dr. Delbert Blair, a master metaphysician protege. And I said to him, I said, I can't sleep. Something is going on. And he said, well, a lot of people can't sleep right now. And I think, there's some type of, frequencies that are being emitted in the atmosphere that's causing a lot of people to have trouble. So I was having a side conversation with Dr. Tony Vortex from the Meta Center. And at the same time, along comes this gift in the mail. And when I put the pendant on, I noticed all of my trouble sleeping went away. And I had peace at night, and I was able to dream vividly again. And so I called John Fitzgerald Kennedy Jr. and I said, I don't know what it is about that pendant you sent me, but I fell asleep with it at night. And that one night that I fell asleep with it, my dreams were vivid. I felt calm. I felt at peace. I felt well rested. I just felt different. So I started wearing it even all throughout the day and even in my sleep. And he said it is a healing pendant. So if you're interested in it, you can go to his website. Jody says, please share John Fitzgerald Kennedy Jr. story, because the more we share it, the more people become awake and the matrix has to dissolve. I agree. MM said it looks just like him. The fake JFK Jr. doesn't even compare. Don says, make yourself some banana peel tea for sleep. Thank you. I'll do that. What is George's last name? You know I'm digging like always. I love being Nubian asked. George's last name is Onassis, after his father, Aristotle Onassis. And his mom's name is Maria Callas. She was an opera singer. Interestingly enough, after JFK Jr. came out with the story telling us that John was actually named George and he was Onassis' son that was produced with his mistress, Maria, then Hollywood started talking about doing a movie based on Maria Callas's life, the opera singer. Grape raisins? What are grape raisins, David Schroeder? Do I need to eat some to help my sleep? Thank you. Yep, they play the race card every 4 years, typically during the time of elections. Dandelion tea, I will. My daughter told me about that. Thank you for that, Don. Oh, wow. Don says, did you know that the Native Americans will lay on the earth, face down, arms spread out, and hug the earth and ask for a blessing? That is beautiful. Excellent point about the energy. Thank you. Oh, Theola says, I would love to hear about your visitation. Gives me chills. Thank you, Sister Theola Brown. It was an amazing visitation by a group of beings that told me we are the Falcons, told me exactly who their name. And the woman said, I am you. Why wouldn't I look like you? I am you. She gave me details. I did a video on it. I have to find that video and re-upload it, of how I am to conduct myself and why I'm going to share this information about the deep state being taken down and how I am supposed to encourage people to stay uplifted. She gave me that charge and said the more I do it, the more other people will raise their vibrations, and then they will raise the vibrations of other people around them. Thank you. I appreciate you as well. Yeah, all of these de facto entities are money grabbing. They got to be dismantled. Changes all over the planet. I agree, Sister Kay Wells and Sister Sophie. The changes are happening. It's just that people maybe don't know where to look. YouTube is violating our constitutional rights by they're posting ads while we're speaking right now on this podcast. They're breaking the law. I'll be so glad when they're all gone. I love the way Jody said this, and I read this already, but it's interesting. The government controls men, church controls women, schools control the children. We got to do away with them. Now, I know that religion serves a purpose because, unfortunately, some people won't do right unless they're told that you have to do right or you'll go to hell. Or maybe that's just our programming that makes us think that. Maybe if we just teach people to treat folks with love, you don't have to have religion to control people or the government. Okay, we got to find a way when we dismantle religion to motivate the people to do good and to love each other. And then finally, I just wanted to show you all that President Trump is inviting the Chiefs to the White House. He's hosting the Chiefs to celebrate their Super Bowl win. And I was like, what Super Bowl win? Because the Eagles won the last Super Bowl. Now, y'all know I predicted that the Chiefs would win the last Super Bowl, as I had predicted the other Super Bowls. I said the Chiefs, they won against the 49ers. They won against, I can't remember who else before. And then this Super Bowl, I said they would win against the Eagles, but they did not win. I said they would win because it is important for everybody to know that the Chiefs on the land are back in control. And I brought out in many other podcasts, like when I said that the Chiefs would win and they that would win and they didn't this last Super Bowl. I said the Chiefs on the land are back in control, but the eagle represents the Roman Empire. And I showed many articles that support my claim that the eagles was the animal that was chosen by the Romans to represent the Roman Empire, which the United States Incorporated is a faction of the Roman Empire, because the eagle is a predatory animal. It was a very, very phenomenal animal that knows how to prey on its victim and is victorious at being a predator. That's what the articles say. And the eagle is a powerful animal. So the Romans chose the eagle to represent the Roman Empire. And that's why the United States Incorporated uses the eagle. So I have said throughout the years that the eagle represents the Roman Empire and the United States Incorporated, and that is why they had been losing the Super Bowl, and that the Chiefs would win because the Chiefs on the land are back in control. The Chiefs, or the indigenous autochthonous people all over the planet, are taking back over their governments because they were suppressed. Many of them were killed, and they were prisoners of war by the group of bloodline families that had overtaken their governments and their way of life, their cultures all over the world. Well, when the Chiefs didn't win, people were like, Pruitt, you were wrong. You were a false prophet. And I said, well, I still hold to the fact that they were supposed to win. I found an article, but what does supposed mean? It's all rigged, right? So I found an article, and I showed you guys this a while ago, where Trump said, when they asked Trump who would win, he said, my bet is on the Chiefs. I thought that was interesting because I didn't know he had said that. He also said in his last Super Bowl that he said somebody messed up the game. Who did that? And he left during halftime. I did a whole video on that. I'll put that in the description section. And he said it was the worst halftime show he had ever seen. Now, that made some people mad when I brought that out, especially people that look like me, because they like Kendrick Lamar, who actually, to me, looks like a woman in those tight jeans with that nice tone behind. But I don't know who am I. I don't know. A lot of these actors, entertainers are inverted. But anyway, I thought it was very interesting that, I had said the Chiefs would win and they didn't. And I said, I'm standing on business. I still believe they still should have won. Some people got really mad. They're like, you're a false prophet and, you're wrong and blah, blah, blah. But, people get emotionally involved when it comes to sports. I just laughed it off. But I did put out in the ethers, I said, in my mind, the Chiefs should have won because the Chiefs on the land are back in control. The Eagles represent the Roman Empire and the United States Incorporated, and they are being dismantled. And so I said, I command the people in power to support the claim that the Chiefs on the land are back in control. And in that monologue that I did, commanding it to be, I said, I command it to come out that the Chiefs are back in control. I command the people in power to acknowledge the Chiefs. I command either an overturning of that Super Bowl or an acknowledgement of the Chiefs. And I said, I said to myself, I might sound crazy to other people, but I know the power that I possess. And then I came across this article yesterday that says Trump says the White House plans to host the Chiefs to celebrate a Super Bowl. What is that? 50. What's 50 plus 54 win? I was like, Super Bowl 54 win. That's interesting. Somebody had come on my show when I was talking about how I had said the Chiefs would win, but the Eagles had won. They said it depends on what timeline you're on, because I saw a timeline where the Chiefs had won this last Super Bowl, and here is the score. I was like, wow, that's weird. But anyway, Trump invited the Chiefs to celebrate the Super Bowl, or Super Bowl 54 win. But when you delve into it a little deeper, you'll see that what he said is that he revealed on Saturday that he's inviting the Kansas City Chiefs to the White House to celebrate the team's Super Bowl victory, which was canceled due to the coronavirus pandemic. The Chiefs defeated the San Francisco 49ers in that game, which was played at Hard Rock Stadium in Miami Gardens, Florida, in February 2020. A month later, the sports world was shut down as COVID-19 spread around the world. So it could be that he's inviting them to the White House to celebrate an old victory. But he's bringing them to the White House now. And as I was talking to Chief Mack, he said that has never happened before, where a president has invited a team to the White House during a time we're supposed to be celebrating the team that actually won. So in our timeline, it was, and this last Super Bowl, it was the Eagles that won the Super Bowl, but Trump is inviting the Chiefs, which is really interesting. So possibly he'll invite both the Chiefs and the Eagles, and maybe they'll celebrate together. But I just really, really appreciate the fact that President Trump is acknowledging the Chiefs, because the Chiefs on the land are back in control. Kendra Lamar is what, you know what, David Schroeder, I was trying so hard not to say Kendra Lamar. I was trying. That's what came to my mind when I said Kendrick. I was like, let me be as respectful as possible. Yeah, that halftime show really did suck. I thought it was the worst I'd ever seen. Oh, the title of John's book? Sure, Divine Hazel. Here's the title of the book. It's called The Historian's Tale: The Amazing Return of President Kennedy's Son, written by John Fitzgerald Kennedy Jr. and Mary Maxwell. You can get it on Lulu, or you can get it on his website. And his website is therealjohnfkennedy.com. I'll put it here in the description section for you, or on the chat for you. That's JFK Jr.'s website. And here, I'm going to show you his Facebook page so you can follow him. His Facebook page is actually under his government name, or his given name, once he was sold to the Quigley family. David Quigley here. That's what it looks like. He's got his dad here. That's him in the front. See? 4,600 friends. If you want to send him a gift, this is his post office box. Post office box 21552, Bullhead City, Arizona. Zip code 86439. His Cash App is Poor Boy John Jr. I don't know why he called himself Poor Boy. Well, because they made him poor. They did. They prevented him from getting certain jobs. They watch you when you're a part of the deep state. Rena Houston, Whitney's eldest child that was sold into child sex trafficking, taught me that. They watch everything you do. They send lovers to you. You think you're meeting somebody organically and you're falling in love. They sent them to you. They'll only allow you to get certain jobs. They will tell the people that hire you how much you are to get paid. They'll prevent you from getting benefits. They'll do certain things to your houses that you live in. They put a chip in you when you're born. They follow you. They manipulate you. They mind control you. It's crazy. But if you care to send him a Cash App, John Fitzgerald Kennedy Jr. is $ Poor Boy John Jr. $POORBOYJOHNJR. So that is his Facebook page. And he calls his people, or his supporters, the Lions, because we roar very loudly. We share information. We tell the truth as we know it. And his YouTube channel here, John Fitzgerald Kennedy Jr., has 4,708 subscribers. And he has 317 videos right now. I'm telling you that because there are many fake accounts. The deep state has dismantled a lot of his TikTok channels. They dismantled his YouTube channels, his Facebook channels. You have to keep coming back. So this is what it looks like here. And I do have he put some of my videos up here, so I'm very appreciative. And I'll put that in the chat for you. So family, please support him as you are able. And we greatly appreciate that. And for you guys that Haven't heard his story? John Fitzgerald Kennedy Jr. is the real living son of JFK Sr. He came out, I want to say maybe 5 or so years ago on TikTok, and the deep state kept removing his TikTok channels. I happened to see him on TikTok, and I kept sending him a couple years ago messages, but I don't know if he would get them. But in the interim, I had met Ron Anthony, who has become a very close friend of mine and Gold Star Mother Susan Price. And I asked him, can you please introduce me to JFK Jr.? I see that you interviewed him on one of your podcasts. Please introduce me to him. And he did. And I was granted the esteemed pleasure and the honor of interviewing J.F. Kennedy Jr. many times, as well as reviewing his books. So that's why I'm talking about him today. He has become a good friend of mine. He sends me text messages. He sends me Cash App blessings. He sends me gifts in the mail. He sends me encouraging words and tells me to keep going. He lets me know that he appreciates me and that he and Robin, his companion, loves me. They sent me this second book. And in the book, I am mentioned 3 times. You can even go to the back of the book and look under Pruitt, and you go to the P's and you look up Pruitt and you see, I don't know if you guys can see that, but I mentioned 3 times. I underlined it. I'm on page 45, 47, and I can't see that next one. 94. He mentions me in the book. He mentions my review, and he says he got his first big break from the Dr. Kia Pruitt show. So I am honored to know and to have met John Fitzgerald Kennedy Jr., a living legend, the son of the real JFK Sr. I am honored to know Rena Houston, Whitney Houston's daughter. I actually went to go see Rena, spend time with her and her daughter. I'm going to see her, and I'm trying to take her and her daughter out. She's blessing me with gifts, me and my son. Just a beautiful soul, a gentle soul. These children of Hollywood actors, entertainers, and politicians have been put through a lot of trauma, and yet they are very loving and very gentle and very kind. Oh my gosh, Michelle, it's good to see you, sister. I didn't even think about that. How ironic. They put me on page 45 and 47. Oh my gosh. President Trump is the 45th president, or was the 45th president of the United States. And now he's the 47th president. They put me on page 45, 47, and 94. And 9 plus 4 is 13. Well, wouldn't you know, and 13 is actually a blessed number. It is a number that the ancients used to work with in order to bring in prosperity, victory, abundance. The deep state tells us 13 is an ominous number, but it's a very high vibrational frequency that comes along with 13. Thank you for bringing that up. That's amazing. I think Arena will do an interview, my girl. Thank you for asking, because she wants to do one with me and JFK Jr. and our friend Ron Anthony, who we all share in common. Crystal says, you're so inspirational and uplifting. You truly have a beautiful soul. Thank you, Sister Crystal Gold. When is she going to give an interview? I don't know. I'm going to have to call her. Aaron said, Michelle beat you to the punch. Michelle is a very dear person to me, a good friend. She and I have been knowing each other on Facebook for a long time. We even have a personal group with her, this sister Monique, and sometimes we'll share information. But Aaron says, Michelle, you beat her to the punch. She noticed that I was mentioned on pages 45 and 47. Yes, Trump is the president. Rich Pritch says 45, 47. That's amazing. Anything else we need to bring up, family? I just wanted to give you that information and give you my short review on the book, The Historian's Tale, The Amazing Return of President Kennedy's Son. Oh, yeah, that's what I want to say. For anybody that missed it, JFK Jr., the real one, just filed a wrongful death lawsuit over his mom's death. And I'm so happy about that. There's a woman by the name of Sweet Tea. She's a part of our club, the Lions Club, that supports JFK Jr., who announced it on her page, and she tagged me in it. And I re-announced it, and then JFK Jr. put it on his page and said, "Thank you, Dr. Pruitt, for mentioning this." Let me see if I can bring it up. Oh, he said, no, he don't call me Kia. He don't call me Doctor. He called me Kia. He said, "Thank you so much for sharing this, Kia." Doesn't it feel good? Like a president's calling me by my first name. I mean, I'm just so excited. A president's son. I mean, I'm just so honored. So they might mute this out on YouTube because there's some music behind this a little bit. I don't own the rights to this music. That's the wrong one. I just wanted to show you something. Hold on. Share the screen. Here's JF Kennedy Jr.'s Facebook page. And when you scroll, his name on Facebook is David Quigley. That's the name that the government or Secret Service gave to him when he was sold to Secret Service after the death of his mom. What does he says? All love right there. Okay, here it is. Can you see it where it says, "Thank you, Kia"? I'll bring it down a little bit. It says, "Thank you so much for sharing this, Kia." I shared it on my page. See it? This is him filing a wrongful death lawsuit. You see his name, post office box, to the clerk of Superior Court. Let's go, happy fingers. Do you still? You can do it all by yourself. Let me see you do it. Let me see you do it. Hey, let's go. Okay. Sweet Tea first posted this, and I reposted. It says, "Does that say John Kennedy Jr. on it? Justice for Jackie. The wrongful lawsuit, a civil suit that David Keith Quigley, also known as John Fitzgerald Kennedy Jr., is filing or has filed." And he says, "Thank you for sharing, Key. I'm so excited." Now, when I shared it, let me get out of here for you guys. I'm going to show you what I said. Divine Hazel says, "Thank you so very much for all the info, for the work you do for the collective." You're welcome. It's my great pleasure. Thank you for acknowledging me. LT says, "You are so worthy." Thank you so much. Thank you all. You all are amazing. I'm going to show you what I said when I posted that. Let me go to my Facebook page. And again, I want to thank you all for sending me a gift, for the Cash App blessings that you all have sent me. And I thank you so much for how you support my work. It means a lot to me. Let's see. I just want to show you what I put on my page when I reposted this. "Thank you, Dr. Kia. You've helped me recently with my finances and digital assets." Oh, Empress, you are welcome. Now, I can help with telling you all about foreign currencies and only a little information about digital assets. I only know a little bit about digital assets. If somebody is contacting you all saying, "Put money here in your wallet, send me money," don't listen to that. That is not me. I am not asking anybody for money for digital assets or to orchestrate or set up a QFS account. But if you're getting videos on how to be smart with your investments in terms of making sure you research your investments before you get involved in them, making sure that you only invest in what you can afford, that those videos are from me. If you get videos that talk about foreign currencies, I share about foreign currencies, the Iraqi dinar, the Venezuelan bolivar, the Indonesian rupiah, the Indian rupee, Afghanistan, Afghani, Vietnamese dong, et cetera, et cetera. I also talk about silver and gold. And I share that information so that we can ensure that our bloodline is secure financially. We want to leave a legacy for our bloodline, for our children and our posterity, meaning our children's children. And we desire to help the human family, period. Those digital assets that have been depreciated that will appreciate over time. It's going to make many of you wealthy. The foreign currencies will make you wealthy. Investing silver and gold will make you wealthy because those assets all appreciate. I haven't heard that we can exchange our foreign currencies now, sister. I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm waiting until the deep state, until it's been officially announced that the deep state has been dismantled, because I don't want them to steal my money or re-empower themselves. So I'm just wait. That's what I'm waiting on. Don says, never send money to someone that asks. Only send money to the person that you desire to. I appreciate that. Yes, the Iraqi dinar is a great investment. So on my Facebook page, when I announced that JFK Jr. was filing a wrongful death lawsuit in the death of his mom, Jacqueline Kennedy, I put on my Facebook page that I read JFK Kennedy Jr.'s book, JFK Jr., aka David Quigley's second book, where he said that he might file a wrongful death lawsuit or a civil case over the unaliving of his parents. But I'm so glad that he decided to move forward and do so. Yes, JFK Jr. is indeed alive. He was hidden in protective custody while George Onassis, his stepbrother, played the role of JFK Jr. I described it here and I showed a link. So you can look at all my on Rumble or YouTube and you'll see I've done interviews and I've shared reviews on his books. We all must know how sinister our so-called government has been. I've reviewed John's first jaw-dropping book called Stolen Identity, and I interviewed him many times. Now that I've read the second book, which is a phenomenal historical account of what happened to him, his mom, his sister, his dad, JFK Sr., as well as his other family members, it's time for me to do a podcast reviewing the second book, The Historian's Tale, The Amazing Return of President Kennedy's Son. Make sure you catch it. In the meantime, purchase JF Kennedy books here at the realjohnfkennedy.com website. And then he reposted that on his page. So that's about it, family. I just wanted to share that with you, share all this information with you. I love you so much. I appreciate you for being here, for making me relevant, for listening to me, whether you agree or not, for sharing monetary blessings through my Cash App. My Cash App is on the ticker here. It's $MamaKia13. That is how I use that money to do more research. I use that money to travel. I use that money sometimes to eat. Because YouTube, my YouTube channel, like I see it making money, and then I don't know how they do, but now the money you can see this is how much you've made so far, and it just shrink by the hundreds, by 1,000. I'm like, oh my God, and it's just shrinking. I was like, gosh, you guys already took down all my pages where you literally owe me thousands, tens of thousands of dollars, won't pay me back, even though I keep asking you, sending you letters, even commanding and demanding you to do so. But now on the new channel, you're like, I don't know, saying that you're going to stop paying me whatever I make, but that's okay because I'm still here and you all send me a blessing. My Cash App is $MamaKia13. I appreciate it. I appreciate you supporting John and all of the people that come on my show. I appreciate you supporting each other, sending love in the chat, sending me intel and information to report on. I just appreciate and love you all so much. And having said that, family, stay encouraged. It doesn't matter what things look like. It doesn't matter how the deep state and mainstream media will try to spin the news. There are benevolent factors like an Earth Alliance, like the Grand Army of the Republic, like a military, like a galactic federation or family of beings that are supporting us in taking down the deep state. They have tasked President Trump, who is under court order, or I don't know if you can call it Supreme Court, higher court, world court order, but he has been given the order to take down and demolish the deep state. It is happening, family. And I will continue to bring up all the news as I receive it. And I will continue to be here for as long as I can. But at some point, I will disappear from social media. I'm tired and I'm ready to get on with humanitarian projects. And I'm ready to live for myself and my posterity. But in the meantime, we are doing the work that we were sent to do. And I appreciate you all for embracing me, loving me, and acknowledging me as part of your soul family. I honor you for allowing me to be part of your soul family. So Lisa says 4 plus 5 equals 9, or 94 equals 94. 9 equals 9. 4 plus 7, 11. Many numbers. Trump is speaking about 9/11 as well. No idea what all of this is meaning. Wow. Love Being Nubian says, I have my reasons. You average Joe. You're welcome, Joyce. And my sister friend Michelle sends love. So, family, that's it. My name is Dr. Kia Pruitt. I hope I've said something to raise your vibrations and inspire you to create the most amazing, magnificent life that you desire and deserve. Go make this a great day. Mwah.